Hey everybody and welcome. I am TBC. It's been a while since I've been around here and I've had a lot going on. Kind of figured it was time to give you my thoughts on kind of where Everquest is in terms of the TLPs and Yelinak, and to share with you a leak I got from a source within Daybreak regarding the last batch of TLPs, and perhaps my thoughts as well on where the TLP server should go next into 2023. So Yelinak, I was so pumped and ready to play on a new TLP. It felt like the right time. Yelinak was announced, and let's go back way back in January 2022. It was included and mentioned in the 2022 roadmap for the game when we had Jen Chan laying out exactly what was to come this year, which I think for the most part they hit every single one of those roadmaps, and maybe we'll come back to that a little later. Now for Yelinak, it didn't obviously have a name, but it gave the release date of May. But no rule sets, that's all the information we got. A new TLP was coming in May. And I still think May's a really bad time to launch a TLP, I really do. And not only that, for this one, the January to May was too long of a wait. In my opinion, it led to hype really dying down as people wait. That's almost 4 or 5 months we had to wait for this. And May's such an odd time, especially the end of May. The weather's getting better, kids are finishing school, summer activities, vacations, they're all resuming. And I get that it's probably more to do around dev time after the launch of expansions and schedules, and whenever they can spare one person to design, implement and test new rule sets. But again, May just seems a little bit odd, and I've always thought a March launch would be really great, and we'll see if we get that this year. We didn't hear anything else about the TLP really until the April update, which gave us the names for our 2 new servers, Yelinak and Vaniki. Yelinak was the traditional TLP with a few shortened unlocks that they've learnt over the years, and some keying handled slightly differently, but otherwise it was pretty much a Finny clone. And Vaniki as well was the experiment, the challenge server, and my thoughts, I said at the time, was I thought this would be really good as an event server, similar to what Quam was several years ago, and it had some initial interest, but I think it really dropped off, and it certainly has done by this point. So in Yelinak, I played it daily. At one point I had 6 accounts going, but I quit after Kunak, and really looking back, there was definitely a few reasons for that. I think the lack of interest in doing Classic and the same again after doing it on Finny, Mangler, Kornav, Agnar, Aradun again and again, and especially with Kunak, is so devoid of content. By, I think even before midway through, I was raid logging, and that's really bad for kind of retention. I just had nothing to do. I'd already made my chrono. I was selling gear in Plane of Hate with my 6 boxes, just going up clearing everything. There really wasn't much else for me at that point to do, and I just lost kind of interest and started playing other stuff. Another big factor, I think, what really turned me off again was the keying, especially after Mischief. Going back to standard keying was terrible. And being honest, waiting around staring at a third-party program for a little X to appear on a map that spawns approximately every 50 minutes, so you can hope RNG that it spawned close to you from one of the 8 or so predetermined locations, which probably have 5 characters already stood there with auto clickers going. To me, it's asinine that in 2022 they still think that's okay. In my opinion, that was bad gameplay in 2000, and it's definitely bad gameplay in 2022, and there's no excuse for it. And if you want that authentic experience, you can go to P99 and do that, but the TLPs are a different game than P99, and they really need to recognize that. Casual players do not want to stand around for hours and hours and hours looking at the ground for a sparkly little globe and hoping to click it. It's not fun. It turns people off. It certainly led to several dozens, if not hundreds of people, you know what, I don't want to play this anymore. It's not fun. You know, people log in for a few hours a night and want to have fun and feel accomplishment, and it's the opposite of accomplishment. It's boring. And I played an SK and I really loved it. It felt awesome, especially in Classic. But Kunat, again, not a lot really for me to do. I wasn't really tanking anymore. And whilst I loved the Green Mist quest, probably one of my favourite quests from early Everquest, I was one of the first Shadow Knights to complete that quest chain on Yelinak. It was so much fun. I like threw everything else aside. I didn't bother with keying initially. I didn't even bother with my epic. I wanted to do the quest chain for Green Mist because it was varied and it was fun and it felt epic. But the Shadow Knight epic, again, it sucks. Truth be told, I only got it done because I left an auto clicker going overnight, pressing a macro every 0.8 seconds, because that was the only way you could get it done with such a long spawn time, and several other people stood around all pressing the same macro again and again and again. That's not good fun, and that's not good gameplay. And for me, one of the other reasons why I quit was running a guild was, to be honest, a bridge too far. Playing was fun and I enjoyed it when we were raiding and having fun, but I was spending more time in spreadsheets some of the time than playing or dealing with drama I cared far too little about. And that really didn't matter, because at the end of the day, this is a video game and everyone's an adult and should be able to handle things, but it just got too much and I wasn't having fun. And, you know, shout out to everyone that I played with, everyone that helped, whether they stuck around or not. You know who you are. I really enjoyed playing with everyone I came across in the guild, and for the most part outside of the guild too. And big up to Iron Blaze for giving me that shout out in his video after we had some fun times at the Haston camp on Yelinak.
I actually see a Terminus. I think that's the channel the Brick Canuck plays. I'm sorry we met like this.
And ultimately, you know, combined, those factors led me to not wanting to log in. So I promised you I had a bit of a leak, and I did, from Daybreak. And what is the population for each server within the first few months of the TLPs launching. And I'm going to put up on screen what I received. So this is from release day for the TLPs. And what we want to look at is the unique logins. I don't look at the other one because that, you know, people logging in, logging out, server crashes, which I think Yelinak did stumble at one point, which is why the your logins are much higher than the unique logins, because it's based off, you know, from their IP. So you'll see Yelinak had solid 7,240 logins, and that's a decent amount. Aradun was way higher than that, but Aradun was benefited from the timing of where we were in the world back in 2020. Mischief was undoubtedly higher than that, and they had two servers with the same rule set with Formblade as well. But again, it's still not bad numbers for Yelinak. That's 7,240 subs or chrono clicks. That's decent. Vaniki was around 4,000, and yeah, I highlighted Mischief right there, which was keeping steady still at 5,000, which, considering this was a year in on a new TLP release date, is absolutely crazy. And wow, you know, good on everyone for sticking around on Mischief. To me, that again, it proves that that model works and is fun. So 1 month in, so we can see Yelinak is now getting 5,800, and this would have been around the time of the Kunat launch. So you can see already it's dropped around 20% from launch. Mischief is still going strong, over 4,000. Vaniki is really starting to take a tumble. And then we go to 2 months in, Yelinak's at 5,500, and Mischief as well has gone down a little bit because it's mid-cycle at that point. And well, Vaniki is, yeah, no one's playing on Vaniki. And I don't have any more recent numbers from that. But if you do keep an eye on the server stats, Mischief is typically high, and so is Yelinak, amongst a few others, but Vaniki is gone. No one's really playing there anymore at this point. Mischief has really retained its population for a server, which, approaching 18 months old, it's unheard of. Prophecy of Roe just launched, and I heard amazing things about how that went with the collaboration and the player base. It really proves to me that, that model that they did last year of something new and something fun really, really worked. So where do we go from here? Are we ready for a Mischief clone? Everquest is near and dear to my heart. I love the game, but I need a new and probably a more casual experience to keep me interested. We're going to keep seeing new TLPs. Daybreak, they will always have new bags to sell, and they need to turn a profit for their shareholder, and it helps fund more newer expansions for live players ultimately. So I think there is an obvious choice at this point. It's clear they cannot do another year like they did this year. There really has to be a rule set which really brings back players that were put off by Yelinak, that maybe have lapsed now on Mischief as it gets through that big level 70 slump. And that's kind of as follows. Relax True Box from day one. Now, Daybreak have promised us this on Yelinak, but ultimately it's to allow people to play more than one character. So the True Box rule set, in my opinion, only punishes casual players and people that are not tech savvy. Anyone hardcore, and I can tell you from experience, let's face it, is spinning up VMware on other virtual machine software and doing it. It's out there. You will still see groups of players running around 6 characters, and full well they do not have 6 computers around them. Anyone hardcore can work out how to get around their blocks, and it's happening day to day, and like I said, all that does is punish the casual player only playing one. But people do want to play more than one character. People do want a 2-box or maybe sometimes 3-box. I do not see the harm in allowing this from day one. I really don't. And I would love to see that happen in 2023. But I think part of the problem is it hasn't really been tested yet. They put it behind an expansion wall on Yelinak that we are not going to see till after the next cycle of TLPs if the dates stay the same. So are they going to be willing to start a new TLP with this rule set without seeing how it implements on the results from Yelinak? I don't know. For launch expansions, please do not launch in Classic. Yeah, it's done, it's over, it's not fun. At least launch with Kunak or maybe even Velius. Classic for 4 weeks and 8 weeks of Kunak, it just sucks, and it's 6 months of what I would call classic Everquest. Classic players or casual players are typically not wanting to do 12 weeks of Plane of Sky or 8 weeks of Trakinon or 8 weeks of Venal Sephir, because Kunak is truly void of content and loot. Going killing VS for a pair of legs is just not interesting for the vast majority of players. Going to Trakinon and getting nothing, it's boring. It's boring once you've done it 7 times. I think at least opening with Kunak will, and maybe even just doing those kind of 8 weeks of Classic plus Kunak, will open up more level paths, and it will make more gear potentially worthwhile, and it will certainly vary the level path than the old, Unrest, Lower Guk Hall. Imagine seeing groups of people going and leveling up in Kearns, Kizora, Delnia. All those zones might see some use with starting in Kunak, or even in Velius, going to the Temple of Frozen Shadow. There's Crystal Caverns, there's options, and there's zones that never get used, where a new TLP which has this rule set might finally see these zones get some attention and see the loot actually warm. The Mischief rule set for loot. Now, going back to the start of Yelinak, I expressed my dislike for the random loot, but looking back, perhaps I was potentially a little critical, but I don't think the problem was the randomness of the loot, but rather the amount of loot. because it was fun going to a raid and not knowing already what you're likely to get. And it wasn't 100% perfect, and I do think it does need some tweaking, especially in Velius. But getting 4 times, sometimes 5 times the loot from a raid, it was too much. It completely devalued all the loot immensely. Guilds are swimming in loot. By several weeks of the expansion, you don't need to raid anymore. Everyone's already in best in slot, and they're bringing ults upon ults upon ults to gear out because nobody needs anything. I think that was overkill a little bit. I think 1 or 2 times the loot is probably okay. Dial that back a little bit, add in that randomness, and I think that that's a good position to be in. I'm not even too concerned about the no drop. I could take it or leave it. I don't think necessarily going full carbon copy on Mischief with like that kind of Throne of V rule set is necessary, but I'm happy either way on that one. I'll let Daybreak make the decision there. And a big one for me is no king. Collecting 12 medals, lucid shards, ground spawns, it drove people away from Yelinak. It's not fun, it's extremely frustrating, and unless you're running naughty track programs, you really do not stand a chance early on in getting these pieces. It's really punishing for casuals. It drives them away from the game. Now, I'm not saying getting rid of entry requirements, but there is already a system in place to manage this, and that's the achievement system. You get an achievement for killing Trachanon. Great! Now you can go to VP if you're level 58. It's there. Why not? That shouldn't take much coding to implement. It's already used later on in the game around the achievements. So why not implement something early on and get rid of the really, really annoying key? Imagine you get the achievement for killing Tuner, Vulak, and AOW, and you're level 60. Great, now you can go to sleepers. Same for Lucklin. No more lucid shards. Same for Pop. No hailing air elementals with limited number of flags. Solves the Plane of Disease block as well. So why not try that? It's already there. It's already in place. You can control it to a degree. The achievements exist. Use them. Give them a reason to exist. And it is kind of a key, but it's at least one that people can accomplish and people can get past without staring at the ground for 12 hours. The XP rate, I'm fine with it as long as I feel like I'm progressing and making accomplishments. When I log in, I'm good at the new standard base level, and Yelinak felt fine to me. It can be a little bit of a slog between level 50 and 60. Maybe I would tune that a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. I also think it's time to look at MOTM. So that was brought in many years ago now to kind of combat the rise in player power, especially when it comes to things like pets and spells and damage. It draws a line through it. The mobs will mitigate 50% of that early on, straight away out the door, which is good in some respects because it does make fights like Nagafen even somewhat of a challenge, because you're not just blowing him up in 10 seconds. But it does have problems, and no more are those problems evident than in the Temple of Vishan. TLP is fun. A lot of people have really strong memories of going to Temple of Vishan and raiding it, and a lot of returning players have those memories and they want to experience it again. But I'll tell you what, after they've done Lady Nev or Vulak once, they don't want to come back. They don't want to do that boring slog of draining exceptionally large HP pools with really punishing like mitigation on damage. It's not fun spending 30 minutes on those fights and making it a 4 or 5 hour raid. Nobody wants that. It's not good gameplay. So I do think that that needs to be tuned somewhat, and it's especially punishing on some classes like especially spellcasters. It's really hurting spellcasters when monks are completely blowing away those fights. An easy way to combat that might be allowing focus effects again. They were not ground, like game breaking for me, on Finny when we had them. They were fun, you know, doing that little bit of extra damage here and there, you know, casting that a little bit quicker, getting a heal off for a little bit extra. You know, it made those pieces valuable, that you wanted them so that you could get that little bit of extra damage in. Yes, they're out of era, but you know what, they were fun, and they really took away a lot when they removed those, especially from the caster classes. So in summary, I think that will be a solid casual server that perhaps stands a good chance of hanging around and bringing back the fun for the player base, which after this last year, especially after Yelinak, I think the player base sorely needs, and of course to allow Daybreak to make some profit from selling bags. So what next for me? I hope to be playing a TLP in 2023, I really do, but I'll only do it if it's fun and if it's something new, and I cannot do the same again. I cannot do Aradun, I cannot do Finny, I cannot do Mangler again. I do want to see some innovation. So Vaniki tried, and I think it was a bit of a miss. I think it was too extreme to a degree. We know there's no way. I don't think we'll see a new UI by then. They did hint that there is going to be a new UI engine in 2023. I think that's going to be very early in development right now. There's no way, in my opinion, that'll be ready in May. But I do think a little bit of dead time right now in these next couple of months. Let's get a good rule set and give players an experience they want, especially if it means not staring at the ground for 8 hours. Otherwise, you know, I'll keep doing my thing. I'll get some streams in. Maybe I'll dabble here and there in a few other games, and I will hope that in 2023, Daybreak can deliver.